The Missing Witches podcast follows the wheel of the year, with true histories of real witches in the autumn and meditations on kinship with the more than human world in the spring.
Stay with us in the off season for the Missing Witches prescription, plus interviews and Sabbath specials all year round.
Join us as we change with the seasons, but always return to our roots.
And if you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven. Find out all about it at missingwitches.com.
She's rising, she's rising. The spirit is rising, it's rising, it's rising. The spirit is rising, they're rising, they're rising. The spirit.
Hello, Coven, and welcome to another installment of the Missing Witches prescription, where we take a look around at the fuckery and nonsense and try to cut through the tall grasses of sorrow and anger and fear to find lights that can guide us out of the tunnels that we're in. Of course, these days we're starting every prescription with the same prescription, which is send some of that light in the tunnel to Risa, focus on a light, send her beams of light, let them warm her. She feels them. She's told me that she does. So, prescription number 1, let's take a deep breath together and send that breath to Risa. My name is Amy. Of course, you all know me, but you might not know Holly, my guest today. Holly from Entrepreneur Outliers. You can check out Entrepreneur Outliers at entrepreneuroutliers.com. Of course, the link will be in the description of this episode. And Holly has brought a prescription for us. How are you doing, Mama? How's it going?
Hi, Amy. Hi, Kevin. I'm great this morning. How are you doing?
You know, I have love and peace in my heart, but outside of my body, it feels a little different. You know, I can only control a very, very, very tiny part of my universe. So that part that is under my control is okay. The rest of it is a dumpster fire. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'd like to amend my answer. I'm right there with you. I'm so societally programmed to say, like, I'm so good, So I'm going to retract that and say, kind of the same thing. I'm going to echo your sentiment. Inside, I'm trying to maintain. I mean, I'm super excited to be here with you, obviously. Inside, I'm trying to maintain, and outside, woof,
Yeah.
it's rough.
What the fuck? The fuck
What
is going on
the
out there?
fuck is going on out there?
I know you were having we were texting the other day and you were like having difficulty even processing what SCOTUS has been up to, what is going on in your home country. Of course, I'm in Canada. You are in the United States. And, the politics of the US has a tendency to sort of rise like hot air and come north of the border. So Canadians out there, like it's easy for us to say, oh, well, our abortion access rights are fine, but like that's today, that's today. Who knows
Exactly.
about tomorrow? So did you bring us a light in the tunnel, my darling?
I did. I did. I when I was thinking about the prescription I was going to bring, I went back and forth with many things, and I'm a Sagittarius, so I get. And for those of you that follow Ayurveda, I'm also a Pitta, so I'm a fiery person, and
Hmm.
I am passionate, and I believe in justice and equality for all. So, with the state of the U.S. political climate, I have had all sorts of feelings for the last many years. Um, and I finally landed, I picked one song because there were many contenders. This song is by the Resistance Revival Chorus with Rhiannon Giddens, and it's called All You Fascists Bound to Lose.
All you fascists bound to lose.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. And it's an amazingly catchy song that brings the vibes of a gospel choir and some bluegrass mixed in. So it's, it's easy to get in the rage with some good, like, anarchist punk songs, or bring in some, Pussy Riot, Make America Great Again by Pussy Riot was my number two. But I went with All You Fascists Bound to Lose because it's more upbeat. It makes me want to punch things less. And it lets me dance a little bit, dance the feelings out, which is what I need.
What are some of the lyrics? Do you recall?
I do. The lyrics are pretty simple, but the beginning is, I'm going to tell you, fascists sure may be surprised. There's people in this world, we're getting organized. You bound to lose, you fascist bound to lose. And then the chorus is, all you fascists bound to lose. And they just add a little bit more to it, but that's the gist, and it's amazing.
I'm gonna tell you, fascists sure might be surprised. There's people in this world, and we're getting organized. You bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose. All you fascists bound to lose. All you
It's funny that Risa and I never talk about what prescription we're going to bring when we do these together. We like to be surprised by each other and delighted by each other, but there always seems to be like a connective tissue between, what Risa or what my guest, in the past few weeks brings and what I bring. And that's definitely the case today. Speaking of angry punk music and, our communities and collectives, I'm going to tell a bit of a story that might be triggering. So trigger warning right now. Take a deep breath. July 7th, 1993, Mia Zapata, the founder of a band called the Gits, who were like in that proto Seattle punk scene, some of the pioneers of that punk scene, and Mia was one of the few women that was at the forefront of that scene. And on July 7th, so like the anniversary is like nowish, she was murdered. And trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning, skip ahead 10 seconds if you need to. She was raped, strangled, beaten, and left at the side of the road. And I think about her a lot because she was this force of punk energy. But what I want to tell you about is what happened after that, right? So following her death, her friends in the scene, her, the fans of her band, they didn't cower, they didn't stop, they didn't hide. I'm sure they cried, but what they did was they started an anti-violence organization called Home Alive, and they provided people with like self-defense tips and training. They put on concerts in her memory and used those shows to raise money, to provide resources for victims of sexual violence. They really came together as a community because when something horrible happened, and when something horrible happens, we have two options. And I think a lot of us right now are just so overwhelmed with the constant. I feel like since pandemic, and of course before, it's not like we lived in some idyllic pasture, a flowery meadow all over the world, but it seems like since pandemic, it has just been a constant stream of the failings of democracy, people's rights being taken away, fucking genocides. And it is exhausting. And I get that you're exhausted. I really do. But the more scared, sorrowful, angry you feel, the more important it is to connect with your community and use those feelings of rage and sorrow to do something. And it literally anything. Take that energy. I know, like, I'm a wallower too. Y'all, I get it. I'm no stranger to like depressive episodes where I don't even want to get out of bed. But we gotta get out of bed. And so I brought a couple songs. One is, of course, the Gits. Mia Zapata sang, "Just to wake up tells me I must be brave." This is a song called Second Skin. And I want you to know, like, getting up in the fucking morning these days, you can say to yourself while you're brushing your teeth, "This tells me I'm brave." And then she goes on to sing, "I need that second skin, something to hold me tough." Now, here's the clincher. Can't do it on my own. Sometimes I need just a little more help.
Well, I need that second skin, something to hold me tough. Can't do it on my own. Sometimes I need just a little more help. Well, I've got that chance to give. Every drop that's left.
And that's what we need to do. We need to stop isolating with our fucking phones and our fucking doom scrolling and get out into the community. You don't have to start an organization, but you can support an organization. You can make sure that people who are most affected by the laws and the rules that are coming out to play right now have support. It doesn't have to be national. It can be so grassroots that it's literally just you and your best friend thinking about how, what, how, and what. How can we do something? What can we do something? What can we do something? How can we do something and what can we do? And again, it can just be like going out into the world with a sense of love that you put out, you know, like people are driving like crazy. The individualism is so rampant. And I want to make a distinction between individualism and individuality. I'm a big believer in individuality. I want you to be who you are and your authentic self. And it doesn't matter if that goes along with the status quo or not. These are your decisions that you get to make about how you want to live your life. Individualism, on the other hand, is where we become these like gods of our own religion, where I need to get somewhere 5 minutes faster, and I literally don't care if I cause an accident on the highway behind me. Like, that's individualism. Billionaires who are hoarding and hoarding and hoarding and watching people fucking starve to death. That is individualism, where all I care about is myself, versus individuality, which is like, I just want to be free to be me, right? So, one of these concerts that Home Alive put on, Joan Jett and Kathleen Hanna. Now, if you're a punk girl, those names are very, very, very fucking familiar to you. Joan Jett is like, you know, an icon of just badass womanhood. And Kathleen Hanna, of course, the founder and lead singer of Bikini Kill. They got together and wrote a song called
Stop.
Go Home. And it's about, you know, this notion of fighting back against a culture that wants women to be afraid, that wants to make sure that a woman can't safely walk home after midnight. And they sang, "Give me a reason to fight when there's nowhere to run to." And that's the thing, we see so much of it, like, I'm leaving this, I'm gonna go move to this, I'm gonna do whatever. I get it, that's fine. But there's nowhere to run to because we're all on this fucking earth together and we are all connected. And now we all officially have a reason to fight. So again, I want to go back to Second Skin. We need something to hold us tough, but we can't do it on our own. and we need just a little more help, and we have to get that help from each other. So R.I.P. Mia Zapata, gone but not forgotten. Your legacy has inspired so many people, and your death inspired an organization called Home Alive that made sure to do whatever they could to not let that happen to another one of their friends. And that's what we can do. Take your anger, take your sorrow, organize. Holly, can you
Yes.
read me the lyric again about organizing from your song that you brought?
There's people in this world, we're getting organized. And that's part of this morning. I was deeply enraged, which is why I chose this song over one of the others. Reading about the potential mask bans that are possibly going into effect different parts across the US. I live in California. In LA, there's a proposed mask ban. North Carolina, New York, Chicago, Ohio. And these are under the guise of protesters. In most cases, they're protesting the Palestinian genocide. So they're, the legislators behind it are saying, well, we're trying to, have it unmask hate is one of the slogans. And, it's all a bunch of bullshit that, we know. So it's incredibly infuriating to me as somebody who's immunocompromised, who I had vaccines, my booster. I was in bed for a week. I had a severe reaction to it. I have fortunately never had COVID, and that's because I wear a mask when I go out in public. I still go to concerts, I hang out with people, but I do it in a way that protects me and my family. And to have it be this bullshit reason saying, well, you might steal something, it's incredibly, insulting and dangerous. And I could go off on a big tangent, but
I would love it if you did.
well, here's the thing is, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, which, first of all, ew, gross with the name, but they ran a test back in January of 2021. So their own controlled scenario test that was 96% successful in identifying people who were wearing masks when they ran it through their facial recognition software. So that was January of 2021. In February of 2022, Apple released their new Face ID feature with masks. So if the US Homeland Security Department can ID people wearing masks, if Apple can get it through your phone feature security system with people wearing masks, like it's BS. So this is just a guise to oppress and to, publicly quash us all, honestly, quash our spirits, quash our health, make us just stop wanting to protest, wanting us to, just be little workers and be good little consumers.
And we will not be quashed.
We will not be quashed. We will not. And some of the languaging in some of these bills even go so far as to include face shields. So not even a masking, like a clear face shield. So it's obviously bullshit. And there's also the wording, the Heritage Foundation, who is behind the Project 2025. Have you heard of that, Amy?
Oh.
At all? Okay.
Oh. Like dystopian nightmare fuel, this Project 2025. Listeners, if you haven't read it, we're not going to read it to you now because it's too scary of a scare story to even bring to the podcast, but please look it up and read it and go on, Holly.
Yeah, but they're also, saying that they want to remove mask mandates in healthcare. So, someone like Risa, if she were in the States going through cancer treatment, they want it to be where, oh, whatever, We don't care if you get sick. And even if it's just a cold, people who are immunocompromised get fucked up. So, it's incredibly infuriating. And as I was digging a little deeper into this, I learned that I don't think you have this restaurant fast food chain up there, but it's In-N-Out Burger is what it is. Have you heard of In-N-Out?
It's on my bucket list because I've never been to an In-N-Out.
Well, you might want to remove it from the list, to be honest.
All right, good. My bucket list was a little too long anyway.
But I found out that they ban their employees from wearing masks. They just flat out say employees are not allowed to wear masks. So, I've added them to my list of permanently, boycotted businesses along with,
that we will quash. I'm baffled, and this is what I come back to pretty much every day. And I'll say to my spouse, like, it's probably a good thing that I don't understand this mindset, because if I understood it, maybe like that would be me. I would be some horrible, selfish monster who is trying to figure out how to make sure that people are sick and dying so that I can turn a profit. Like, I really am just baffled. I don't understand. And I mean, yeah, I'm just like slack-jawed and wide-eyed trying to figure out the motivations behind such astronomical levels of greed. Listeners, I'm just like kind of staring into space at this point. Like, I've been, looking into this and thinking about it, and when I mentioned it months ago, and about like this history of greed, like where did this come from, and there is like an ancient idea of greed being like a virus that spreads, and I think individualism is also a virus that spreads. Wearing a mask won't protect you from the virus of greed and individualism, because when you are even in a room full of people who don't give a fuck about you and only care about themselves, then you start to get brainwashed into that, well, if nobody cares about me, then I'm not going to care about anybody else.
Absolutely.
If nobody's going to help me, then I'm not going to help anybody else. And that, I feel like, is what's happening. So we need to like push against that. Like, again, like I was saying before, take those feelings of rage and sorrow and let's do some shit productive with those feelings. My great aunt B, she always used to say, and she didn't make this up, this is a classic phrase, but I've heard it first from her: it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And so, ultimately that is the prescription that is going to guide me every day, hopefully for the rest of my life.
That's a great phrase. I love that.
Yeah.
Because I feel the same way, and I personally fight those feelings too. I feel isolated. I feel incredibly betrayed and bitter about how the pandemic started versus where we're at now, and for the level of ableism that is so apparent now. It's disheartening and it's depressing. And to hear politicians and heads of universities and things saying, oh, well, people who are disabled, maybe you shouldn't be going to protests because if you're worried about being out during the pandemic, if you're worried about catching COVID or RSV or any other thing that's out there, maybe you should just stay home. And that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Everybody should be able to protest. Everybody should be able to protest and not worried about being beaten by the police, having their bodies decimated by a virus. It should be accessible to all. And I understand to some extent, when I think back about the other mask-eating, like the KKK, they wear masks, technically. They're hooded. So, like I get it. And also it's a yes and for me. And so being somebody who gets very all or nothing in a lot of ways, it's hard for me to kind of piece things together and figure out how both things can be true at the same time. And, how do you legislate things? I don't know. I don't have those answers, but I feel like as a collective, like you said, we're all on this planet together. We all, the fascist movement, the right-wing movement is turning global, and we all need to rise up together. So these fascists are bound to lose.
What drives entrepreneur outliers?
So initially, I have a background in the wellness industry, and being at the time I had a brick and mortar business prior to the pandemic, and I was a single mom, and I have chronic Lyme disease, and that's kind of launched a whole bunch of other fun health issues. So I had to DIY a lot of my business learning. I didn't go to college with get a business degree. So I learned on the fly, and it was really fun and terrifying. And as a solopreneur, at the time and still currently now, I had to figure shit out on my own, and figuring it out with cognitive issues, with physical issues. I was teaching yoga and, trying to teach 11 to 22 classes a week in a body that sometimes was like, no, I had to get really creative with my teaching style. And so learning all of the business elements of things, it made me realize how much I actually love talking business strategy and love implementing the wellness techniques that I've learned through myself and through talking with other people through the 16 years that I've been an entrepreneur, and just learning how we can work together to take care of ourselves while being of service to other people. So that's the mission really behind Entrepreneur Outliers, is having a community in place to be supported as an entrepreneur, to support others, to give feedback. We have a mastermind that we do. It's donation based, so I don't believe in a financial barrier to entry. I think that's bullshit. And also, there's time and energy and expenses that I have and put into. So, an energetic exchange is fair and great. But I just don't feel like, much like the Missing Witches coven, your lowest entry, dollar amount is very low, and the tiers go up from there. And I think that's amazing to do things like that. So that's kind of, what's pushing me, is to be with others who are at varying stages of their entrepreneurial journey, and having us all learn together and support each other, and to be a safe place to unmask and to talk truth, talk from our heart in whatever way that looks like for anybody who wants to participate.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like, what we're talking about is this radical, rebellious community building outside of the status quo, outside of what we've been taught or what we're told to believe. Again, we all need that second skin. We all need something that's going to hold us tough, but we can't do it on our own. And sometimes we need just a little more help. Thank you so much, Holly, for coming and doing this RX with me today.
Thank you for having me, Amy.
And blessed fucking be.
Blessed fucking be.
Me, and my life is all to me. I love myself and all me. I love myself and all of me, all of me. I love myself and all of me. Love myself and all of me. I love myself and all of me.
The Missing Witches podcast follows the wheel of the year, with true histories of real witches in the autumn and meditations on kinship with the more than human world in the spring.
Stay with us in the off season for the Missing Witches prescription, plus interviews and Sabbath specials all year round.
Join us as we change with the seasons, but always return to our roots.
And if you want to support the Missing Witches Project, join the coven. Find out all about it at missingwitches.com.